It's actually supposed to start the first week in February, which is this. But we are lucky to have Idea War. Now, it's a thrilling series which summarises the story behind the fight for the future of the city of Johannesburg. Yeah, Johannesburg. Volume 1, that's this, introduces us to a team of teenagers fighting against the autocratic rule of a government that has taken control over South Africa. Interesting, isn't it? Now, to talk about the book, we are joined in studio by the author of this book, Idea War. It's called Abby, for short, Godsell, is with us. Good morning, Abby. Thanks for being with us.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Let's just set the scene of Idea War for us quickly, if you can.
So Idea War looks at a not too distant future with a recognizable cityscape, some jumps in technology, but not space conquest just yet. And it looks at a world that's been pushed very far to the brink of not quite apocalypse, but getting there. And in this world, there's a global oil war, scrabble for the last dregs of resources. And tough choices have to be made and alliances have to be formed. When South Africa was given the choice, they chose the Chinese bloc of superpowers rather than the Americans. And what this has led to is Johannesburg as a city-state seceding from the rest of the country. So we are a city-state on our own.
Yeah.
There is a wall, and there is an occupying military power who sets the rules, writes the news, and tells citizens what they may and may not do, think, and believe.
I always thought Cape Town was the city that wanted to secede from South Africa.
So this is the thing. I'm a little bit against people starting out writing in a city that they don't love.
Yeah.
Because it tends to show in the work.
Yeah.
It's very easy to find a contempt for a city. And I don't love Cape Town in the same way that I love Johannesburg. That's the city that I wanted to set my story in.
Tell me quickly a little bit about the Johannesburg thing, because, you know, Johannesburg never really gets the props, but it's a cool city, isn't it?
It's an amazing city. It's not one city, it's maybe 1,000, because Johannesburg's a little bit different for everyone who lives in it. And a lot of different people come to Joburg. And I think having stories set in the city that you live in is really important for readers, especially young readers.
Yeah.
So that you don't get the idea that science fiction only happens in New York,
Yeah.
that magic only lives in London.
Yeah.
Stories need to be local and present.
Yeah, so you can identify with it, and you can own it a little bit, I think is probably the best way. But talk about Idea War quickly, about the similarities between the South Africa that's in this title, Idea War by Abby Godsell, and then the future South Africa, the South Africa we know now and the future that you've created. Is it kind of a platform that you've used the one to build the other one on?
Well, I try, like a good science fiction writer should do, to build a logical world, to start from some premises and make logical leaps. I'm not trying to predict the future.
Yeah.
A lot of the story is metaphor. The story is really about young people in high school, or sort of at the high school age, discovering that the world is a lot more complicated than they were promised.
Yeah.
Good and evil, right and wrong, my people and your people are very nebulous, murky concepts.
Yeah.
And that's a really, really uncomfortable truth, and something that we don't talk about nearly enough. And so I wanted to write a story about it.
So it's a mini-series, which I like. It's a mini-series, and it's about less than 50 pages, which is that specifically for today's audience? Can we only read up to 50 pages and no more?
Time is incredibly precious. And I, as a writer, am competing with people's families, people's jobs. I don't want to take that precious time and not give them value for every word. So I try and cram as much as I can into the shortest amount of space. Also, carrying around books is heavy. You're going to wreck your back. I don't want to be responsible for people's back problems.
It's not because in the social media age, people like to look at pictures rather than words.
I think there is definitely that. I think as fiction writers, you're competing with large-scale movies, you're competing with comic books. So I think there's a plethora of things for people to spend their time on. So you have to offer them something that's not going to be too demanding. But I don't think this indicates anything bad about society, just that we're embracing new media, which is good. We're an adaptive species.
Absolutely. Time moves on. You have to move with it. You yourself, you're a civil engineer. I can't picture that. You're a civil engineer. Does that influence your writing, and shouldn't you be getting a real job?
Well, when a real job comes within my reach, I will certainly pounce on it. But I did part of a civil engineering degree and then realized that I'm more of a people person than a numbers person, and we really don't need any civil engineers who have an uncomfortable relationship with numbers. So I switched to an urban and regional planning degree, which I've just completed. So it's still working with the built environment and working with that interface between the environment and people.
Yeah. What's next for Abby Godsell, and then when do we see the next in the series?
It's really exciting because the next in the series is in production at the moment. I should be launching it later in the year. 2 and 3 and hopefully 4, time dependent, should be launched this year. And in terms of Abby Godsell, I've got a very productive relationship with a new small press publishing house called Sarah Blue, which aims to grow local authors. I've produced 1 book with them, a collection of short stories called Relative Scale, which I'm really proud of. And hopefully it's the ability to keep telling these stories and keep telling local stories, because I think it's important for local readers, especially young readers.
If there are people that are out there that want to connect with you and stalk you, where do they do that?
So there are a number of stalking opportunities. I'm on Facebook. If you just Google Abby Godsell, Facebook should spit that out. I've got a blog called Words and Worlds that WordPress hosts, and just up an author website on Wix, which is cyanseagull.wixsite.com/Abby Godsell, but poking around on Google should eventually turn up the right links.
Fantastic. Abby Godsell, Idea War. I think it's a book that we should all read. You can read it in an afternoon, to be honest. It's a very exciting read, and it's set here in Johannesburg, the city of gold. I think the most wonderful city on the African continent. Abigail, all the best for you. I shouldn't say Abigail. Abby, all the best going forward. Lots of success, I hope, with this book and then the series. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Yes,